This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch or get 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, then please consider becoming a patron and joining us at www.patreon.com/cultpopture.
So, I just watched the Star Trek Picard trailer from Comic-Con. Have you seen it?
No.
It's so exciting if you watched Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh, and
which
you did?
I did not.
Oh.
So I watched it and I was like, fuck, I can imagine being like absolutely over the moon for this. But I don't know who that character is. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's classic Picard or not. Like, it's all just not nonsense. That's a bit harsh, but meaningless to me because I never watched it.
Yeah, I'm just watching it now. Oh, that's classic Picard.
Is it?
Yeah.
You would know.
Oh, it's that character. Oh, it's that prop.
So apologies for this episode being later than we usually get them out on a New Zealand Monday. I'm sure we crossed the day line somewhere between the delay. I've been very sick, Richard.
Yes, sick like this Picard trailer I'm watching.
No, the opposite. The other sick.
What?
Sick like I'm not good in the head. I'm
like cyclical, like you've been a circle.
Yeah, I have been a circle. I've been around. And look, we've come off the back of some very exciting announcements at Comic-Con. A lot of trailers, a lot of films, a lot of logos confirmed. And wouldn't it be nice to talk about them, Richard?
Nah.
Wouldn't it be nice to do a podcast talking about the reveals at Comic-Con? But no, we refuse. And that's not what people listen to us for.
It didn't even cross my mind to do it.
Because what is this, Richard? What are we doing?
This is film franchise Fortnights on the Cult Popture podcast.
Hell yeah.
I am one of your hosts, Richard, and I'm joined literally by Alexander Jones.
Please call me AJ. That my friends call me AJ, and everyone listening to this is my friend.
Yeah.
And so we watch a different franchise every fortnight. And what did we watch this fortnight?
This fortnight, we watched the Magnificent Seven film franchise.
Mm-hmm.
This fortnight, which is a franchise of 6 films, which actually is this our first franchise where we haven't named it after the first film in the franchise?
I feel like that's a very familiar situation, but I think it might be the first film franchise fortnights with this.
Because it's actually the first film in this franchise is Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, which came out in 1954. And then Magnificent Seven was a remake of that, and then that had sequels, and then a remake of its own. So, should we roll through the films? Or?
A remake of a remake. That's not very common either.
It's not. All right, so should we just roll through the films, or should we go through one by one? What do you want to do?
Let's go through... Let's roll through them first and give people a taster.
Today we're going to be talking about Seven Samurai, which came out in 1954, which is a Japanese film, and then that was remade as The Magnificent Seven in 1960, which is a Western that's directed by John Sturges. And then 6 years later we had Return of the Seven, 1966, directed by Burt Kennedy. Then Guns of the Magnificent Seven, 1969, Paul Wenkos directed that. And then we've got The Magnificent Seven Ride! The
Magnificent Seven Ride!
And that was 1972, directed by George McCowan. And then in 2016, we had a remake.
It has an exclamation mark at the end of it, I want to be clear.
Yeah.
That's why I shouted ride.
So that's, The Magnificent Seven, 2016, directed by Anton Fuqua. I've never actually said his name or heard it said out loud. But that was also written by Nick Pizzolatto as well.
Yeah, that's cool,
Who is known for writing True Detective. So, you might think, wow, what 6 films. But also, fun fact, randomly placed trivia, this is our longest spanning franchise. Going from 1954 to 2016, 62 years. It actually, funnily enough, Another film franchise we've done, which at the time of recording started with a Japanese film from 1954 and ended with a 2016 film. This it was Godzilla. This actually beats Godzilla by 3 months.
But wouldn't you say King of the Monsters?
Yeah, no, at the time of recording.
Right, at the time of recording. Okay.
Yeah, I did say that.
Yeah.
And also,
I've been sick, dude. I'm sorry.
This between the gap between the Magnificent Seven ride and the Magnificent Seven remake is 44 years, which is the second longest gap between two consecutive films in a franchise we've covered. The longest being, can you guess what it is?
The Jungle Book.
No.
What was it?
The Jungle Book was only like 30 years. It's Lady and the Tramp, 46 years between the two films.
Of course. Yeah.
Yes, a couple of little fun facts for you there. Yeah, because it's amazing that Seven Samurai, which is, one of the most influential, not only influential Japanese films, but, films in general, and Godzilla, both came out in 1954. And there is also a film called Tokyo Story, which is another, Seven Samurai and Tokyo Story are both considered like two of the best Japanese films of all time. And they all came out within 12 months of each other, these three films, and they're like the three big pillars of Japanese cinema.
Wow. It's almost like 1954 was the 1999 for Japanese cinema.
Yeah, they and I was reading about how Seven Samurai kept having its budget. They had a lot of budget issues, a lot of resistance from Toho because they were sinking so much money into Godzilla.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. So, what's Seven Samurai about? And that will kind of lay the framework for this episode.
So Seven Samurai is about a village of farmers who are constantly being ransacked by a group of bandits, and in an attempt to save their village and save their lives, because they're running out of food and money and stuff, they recruit what eventually becomes seven samurai to fight for them and protect their village from the bandits.
Yeah.
Easy. It's tried and true. It's a formula.
Yeah, and we'll get to the formula a bit more as we go on. And what do you think that has on Rotten Tomatoes?
104%.
Oh, you're 4 off. It's got 108%. It's 100% with critics, 97% with audience. Often considered one of the greatest films of all time. Yeah. It's in a lot of top 10 lists of greatest films, and if nothing else, it's often called the greatest Japanese film.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Oh, it's so boring, dude. This is going to be a hard episode for any Magnificent Seven heads out there, because this is the first of a series of films that I found. I'd seen, if you didn't listen to our last film franchise, Fortnights, I'd actually watched Seven Samurai for my movie club, AJ's Movie Club on Facebook. Look it up and join it. About a year ago. And I kind of put it there in a poll for the movie club along with The Godfather and Citizen Kane. It was like a best movies ever made poll, right? And I kind of didn't expect Seven Samurai to win, because I would have thought that something like Citizen Kane is more attractive to people who haven't seen it. But it did win, and I just, oh my god, it's from a different planet to what I'm used to watching. You know what I mean? It's in a different language. It's black and white. It's very long. It's 3.5 hours long. And so all my natural 26 years of storytelling, indication, or, how I've been conditioned to expect a movie to be, this movie is none of those things. So you have to pay extra attention to it. You have to, even then, it's still hard to follow in some parts. It's an uphill battle, this movie, for a millennial who watches a lot of 10-minute YouTube videos as this primary source of entertainment. Yeah.
Should we see what your initial comment was about
on Movie Club?
On Movie Club.
If you want.
Boy howdy, does Seven Samurai take its time, and depending on your patience or how much you appreciate old cinema, you would either love it or hate it. I think I would have loved it more if I wasn't rushing to watch it in time, and I spent basically my whole day stopping and starting various streams because they'd stop loading or lose subtitles.
Oh, that was
While
so
I
frustrating.
can think of ways to streamline this film's duration, I still really loved what it had to offer, and I can see why it's so revered. I think the characterization, especially, is really ahead of its time. I loved the calm and collected Kambai and the hilarious antics of Kikuchio, who really shone in this film when his past was revealed. I also really liked how much the inter-village politics got in the way. Things like all the farmers being afraid of the samurai and the worry that the samurai would seduce their women and the stubbornness of a few of the older residents. It really made it difficult for the samurai to be protecting them out of the goodness of their hearts, and I think that that's probably why a film with such a simple plot outline can extend to a nuanced 3.5 hour epic. Massive run-on sentence there, AJ, but
Yeah,
good stuff.
so, look, if you want more run-on sentences and articulate film reviews, then go join AJ's Movie Club on Facebook.
Yeah. I don't know. Because
What is a run-on sentence?
it's just when a sentence is real long. You've peppered it with hyphens and commas rather than full stops.
Right, so it's not grammatically incorrect. It's just annoying.
It kind of is. There's a lot of So you've got in a Facebook comment, it takes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines, and that's one sentence. There's a paragraph, and
Right.
it's reading it out loud especially highlights it because you keep expecting to come to the end of the sentence, and especially with the way I was reading, I was trying to do a bit of an ebb and flow, and I kept on ebbing, and the flow never came.
It sounded fine to me. Hey, look, maybe I intended it to be the Seven Samurai of Facebook comments.
Yeah, I think Seven Samurai is better paced than your Facebook comment.
I disagree. I mean, all what I said is true. Note that I never said this is my kind of movie.
Yeah. Well, so Seven Samurai, I mentioned last episode that it's one that I've been wanting to watch for a wee while, just because it's so high up on all these best movies of all time lists that I wanted to finally be able to tick it off. And so I also mentioned that I've recently signed up for the library, and I got it out from the library.
And you got it out. You signed up for the library because they have a great selection of DVDs and books.
Yeah, exactly. And I need to justify that. People sign up for the library every day.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I got out there. I got out Seven Samurai. I also got out Kira Kurosawa's Ran, and and Rashomon. But they lost their DVD of Rashomon. They just emailed me earlier in the week.
Wow.
So I can't have that. But yeah, I got it out, and then I was down in Christchurch last weekend for the annual 48 Hours Christchurch final, where AJ decides all the awards, and I didn't win any of them. So
It's because you're my friend. It's a reverse bias.
Yeah, my longest streak of not winning anything is the 2 years you've been in charge. Anyway.
I just want to say, for anyone who knows about 48 Hours, I definitely do not decide who wins all the awards. So he's kidding. Don't actually think that.
Yeah.
It's not true.
But yeah, and I was down, and so on the Monday before the final, when we should be getting ready, I'm sure AJ had heaps of admin to do, instead he came over to my house for a solid 4 hours, and I brought down my DVD of Seven Samurai that I got from the library, and we sat there and watched that together on an unbroken stream, with subtitles, because it's a DVD, and that's how they
the
work.
old days.
Yeah. And it's like those ads. It's like Richard's DVD makes sense, AJ's doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you never watch streams. You
Yeah.
never download a movie illegally.
I don't
It's
watch
only what I
streams.
do. Whatever.
Well, I don't.
Really?
Yeah.
I've watched streams with you.
Yeah, but that's because it was your way of doing things.
Okay.
Yeah, I always download.
As if that's better.
Yeah,
As
no,
if
it's not
that's-
better, but I'm just saying, I don't do streams. Because they're so much harder to find, and yeah.
Yeah, downloading is classier.
Yeah. Now I've
It's
got
the
like
difference between robbing an art gallery and robbing a dairy.
Although I have been looking into for our next film franchise, which will be revealed at the end of the episode, I've
Oh,
been
shit.
looking into buying them because it's like just as
DVD
easy.
acquisition.
And it's like just as easy. It's only like $40 for the entire franchise.
What?
On Blu-ray?
Oh my god.
Yeah. So maybe, or maybe we should buy it with the Patreon money since they got us to do it. Anyway, I'm getting off track. We watched Seven Samurai together, and I think there's elements of what you kind of said about the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly that you can kind of zone in and out, and because it's so slowly paced and such an epic that you can kind of still just pick up on what's happening.
Well, because it's as I said, the plot of the film is like, it's such a basic story structure that it's actually quite like incredible that they managed to stretch it out to be that long. And I think, like with Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, as long as you remember that's what it's about, you can kind of not pay attention to other parts of it and still understand where the story is going and why it's like I understood the beginning, the middle, and the end. You know
exactly, but I might not understand every single scene.
Yeah. There might be a scene where I'm like, I don't know why they're talking about this.
Yeah,
but they are.
That's what that like I think, and it's starting to become a real problem as well. Is that like because we've watched so many films for this podcast, and I'm trying to watch a film like every day, and at like I think like next week I will have watched more films this year than I did last year. And I watched 250 films last year. So, but I was looking through them, and I was looking through my list that I've watched this year, and I have no recollection of watching Following. I watched it in like February for your movie club, and I do not remember. I don't remember like the circumstances I watched it under, or like what it was about really, or anything like that. But I've started when I'm watching a film, I follow like a précis of it. That like
what of it?
A précis, they make like précis maps, which are like so. It's like a let me find the dictionary definition. Whoops, I spelled it wrong. So that's makes the things I wanted to know.
Off to a bad start.
So it's a summary or abstract of a text or speech. So I learned about it in the term in geography because you make like a précis map. It's like PRECIS.
Are you just saying synopsis?
No, but like, well, I've like when I'm watching a film, I follow it in like in very broad terms, like, and then watching it again, or like when the whole film's finished. So there's like bits, like you say, when it will get to a scene, and I might not be able to tell you what's happening in the scene, but I can follow it. Like, I guess it's as well that like my comprehension and what I can say during a film are two different things.
Yeah.
Like. Yeah. Yeah, or like I think I'm following this, but I'm not confident enough to lead you down the same path as what I am. But then at the end of the film, we can be like, oh, what was that scene about? Oh, it was because of this,
Right.
So I have to take in the whole film before I can.
Yeah.
So that's Seven Samurai was a real test of that.
I once watched Primer with some people, the famously confusing movie Primer, and at one point people paused it so I could explain it, and in my head I was like, I'm not confident that I can explain this.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that people are pausing the movie for me to try and explain it was very daunting. I'm not good enough for this. Don't trust me.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Seven Samurai. Apparently, like talking about the plot, apparently it was Kurosawa originally wanted to just do like a film that was like a day in the life of a samurai. So you see him like wake up, go to work, come home, and then kill himself because of some like thing that had happened that would be revealed. But then he like learnt about how stuff like this would kind of sometimes happen, like samurai would like protect villages, and that's what how the story came about.
Cool.
And
do you like it? Do you like the film?
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Same reaction, I think.
Yeah, no, like it's I don't know, it's with a lot of these like franchises that follow this framework, especially, and this is like a perfect example of it. So you have like a very old foreign film, and then you have an old, like, I was gonna say Western, but it is a Western film, an old, like, English film, and then you have a remake that's considered inferior. Spoilers. I still tend to enjoy the modern one a bit
same.
more, because it's like,
Yeah.
because you're seeing actors that you know and love, and it fits a bit more into modern storytelling thing, and that doesn't necessarily mean like big explosions and stuff like that. It's just, I think movies and dialogue tends to be a bit faster paced these days, which makes it easier. But
well, for me, it's the balance between recognizing and distinguishing between 7 different samurai or cowboys from the 50s and 60s, or distinguishing between
Chris
7
Pratt
different
and Ethan Hawke,
actors who I know their first name,
Yeah.
And so I found it a lot easier to follow
that-
just for that reason.
That's a good point, yeah. But one thing about Seven Samurai that's quite cool is, like, you think, oh, like a Japanese samurai film from the 50s. Like, you have I imagine, people listening to this, you have a very specific idea in your head of what that's like. But it's actually, like, it's quite funny in places, and there's and a lot of it, is quite. It's surprising how modern a lot of it is as well. For like a Japanese samurai epic set in the 1500s from 1954.
Yeah.
So that was remade into the Magnificent Seven. What's that about?
That's is that the theme music?
Something like that.
Yeah, that's Magnificent Seven, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. We did the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly theme music last episode. So I was like, yeah, this is another one where it's like, this is where that music's from. That famous Western music is from this movie.
So what's the Magnificent Seven about?
It's the same thing, but with cowboys.
Nice. Yeah, it is.
It's the 7 cowboys.
So, yeah, what'd you think of it?
I maybe enjoyed it the same amount as Seven Samurai.
Yeah, I'd say the same.
Yeah,
probably.
it's no more. Okay, here's a fun observation I had.
Oh, okay.
Is that in both, like, plot structures, there's a character who, like, is like the 7th member who's, like, not quite qualified enough, and in Seven Samurai, it's like a off,
Kuchu.
Yeah. And so he's like, he doesn't play by anyone's rules, and he's a bit of a rebel, and he's a bit
young
crazy.
one as well.
He's young, and so going into
he has a hilariously large sword.
Yeah. Going into the Western version, I was expecting to see one of them would be like the wacky one, but instead they adapt the fact that he's inexperienced more than the fact that he's like almost the comic relief.
Yeah.
Which was an observation I wouldn't have brought up if there were more things to talk about. In this
Yeah, like, I'm surprised we talked about Seven Samurai for like 20 minutes, because I have very little to say about the Magnificent Seven sequels. So it's basically the same thing. And, okay, you brought it up, so we're going to take a little detour here.
Shit.
So
Comic-Con.
about the... What did you say, Comic-Con?
Yeah.
All right, so Taika Waititi's just... No, so you're familiar with TV tropes. Yeah, so there's actually a tropes page called The Magnificent Seven Samurai. And I'll just read it out to you.
Okay.
So it's about and it goes into the plot beats of each of these films, which will, help, and maybe you at home can think along to films that you've seen that follow this. So you're one of a group of farmers whose village is under attack by a gang of remorseless bandits. None of you know how to fight, so you leave to hire a group of warriors who are willing to defend you for the pittance you can pay plus meals. So you come back with 7 guys, and hey, wait a minute. Haven't we seen this somewhere before? No, you haven't been reading TV tropes for so long that everything is blending together. This is actually a relatively common plot device. Take the basic plot of a bunch of cool guys, plus awesome goal, plus clearly defined personality types, plus any other overtones of Seven Samurai you can think of, and bam! Instant team on a mission story. Because Seven Samurai contains many plot elements which are not exclusive to Japanese culture, it is easy to shift the basic narrative around and still get a workable movie angle. In fact, it's such a classically popular example of a narrative that many filmmakers don't even bother being subtle in the process of homage. There's a lot more movies out there with exactly 7 heroes doing this kind of plot than you'd expect. And then it goes on to say about how the trope and title name is a Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven, obviously, and points out as well that Magnificent Seven was made with Kurosawa's blessing, and he really liked the film, which was, the director's kind of like greatest review of the film, because he wasn't as big on Yojimbo being remade. So the plot is pretty predictable, but always fun. So here we have the 7 characters. You've got the hero will receive the call to adventure. He will then assemble a ragtag bunch of misfits. So that you have the Lancer, who is the if not immediately present, the hero will always know exactly where to find one. And so that's like their right hand man, who's like they have the best relationship with, and also kind of like challenges them a little bit. Yeah. Usually a bit of a sly talker. Then you got the big guy, the smart guy, the old guy, sometimes a shell-shocked veteran, the young guy, and the funny guy.
Yeah, totally.
And then the team finds, so that's part 1. Part 2, the team finds that the people they are trying to protect are largely unwilling or unable to fight for themselves. The team successfully stands off the first attack. The people realize they can defend themselves, and the team undertakes training the peaceful villagers. The team is forced to leave, whether due to the skepticism or wariness of the villagers or threats from the villains. The team decides to return. There is another attack. The people join in both enthusiastically and competently. Several of the team are injured or killed. The attackers are defeated soundly, but not always completely. And the people indicate that they now can and will defend themselves when and if the attackers return. What remains of the team departs.
Yeah, and it's usually, I noticed in more movies than not, it's 4 of the 7 die and 3 survive, is what often happens. And I say that because even though only 3 of these movies out of the 6 are the same movie, just remade, the sequels to the original Magnificent Seven follow a very similar plot structure each time. So it's essentially the same thing.
It's still about, finding 7 people.
I think it might have been Brent commented this on an episode when we were talking about how the Mummy, that original Mummy franchise we watched from the 50s, how it was like the same movie just over and over again. And he pointed out that it's because back in the day, like when the Magnificent Seven came out, there wasn't DVD, VHS releases.
Yeah, there's no other way to watch them.
Yeah, so the way they would make a sequel, and it'd be like, and you go and watch a very similar movie to what you remember, because that's why we made the sequel, to remind you about how good the first one was.
Well, and also because the thing with the Mummy was that these are hour-long films that half an hour of each one was just recapping the last one.
Yeah.
Which only had half an hour of new footage anyway. Yeah, and I think that that's part of the reason. But yeah, so what do you think that has with critics on Rotten Tomatoes?
Magnificent Seven. Yeah. Probably high 90s.
Ooh, 88.
88.
What do you reckon it has with audience?
High 90s.
88.
Right.
All right, then we had...
Imagine if it was 77. That'd be better.
Return of the Seven, 1966, directed by Burt Kennedy. What's this one about?
Oh, okay. So a priest has been kidnapped by a bunch of outlaws, and the main guy from Magnificent Seven.
Do you remember his name?
Chris. Which is a distinctly un-cowboyian name.
I was actually thinking this the entire time, and I wanted to bring it up, and I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Chris the Cowboy?
Chris Adams.
It's no, I don't know. Maybe if they'd called him Christopher. Chris feels like a very modern name to call your 1800s cowboy. His name's Chris, and so he gets up another 7 people to go and save the priest in a whole village. And this is I feel like this is the earliest inferior sequel we've ever watched.
Yeah. Even though I've watched it, I don't feel qualified to talk about this film. So we had Guns of the Magnificent Seven, 1969, directed by Paul Winkos. Spoiler alert, no critics score for this one.
Oh, wow, really?
What's this one about?
It's just the same thing again.
Yeah.
What's different about this one? I'm trying to remember it properly.
It's got a different Chris in it?
Yes. Yeah.
It's George Kennedy.
Yeah, it's George Kennedy plays Chris, and it's a that's right. It's a Prison Break, this one. Yeah, this one's coming back to me. There's a Prison Break, and they've got to...
I enjoyed this one more than Return.
I enjoyed this one more than Seven Samurai, dude.
There's one scene that like it stuck with me where it's like they're like torturing the seven and they bury them in their heads up to their necks and then just like get a bunch of horse to like go nuts around them.
I don't think that was the seven.
Oh, they bury seven people up to their head.
It's not the seven though, because the seven still survive after that.
Yeah, no one dies during that.
Yes, they all die during that. They're a bunch of prisoners.
I need to watch this film again.
Yeah. No, it's a good
crazy.
scene. It's very scary. And I also really liked. There's a line in this where the seven is like, Chris, who's now different, and he recruits a bunch of old and new friends, and one of them is like one of the seven is a Mexican person who's from the village that they're trying to protect, right? He's like the representative, and they meet the bad guy in their travels, who's like a Mexican general, and he says, and he talks himself up and then walks away, and as he walks away, the Mexican guy in the Magnificent Seven says, "A pig in armor is still but a pig," and I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude." That's such a cool line. So yeah, I liked a lot of this film. At least this one had like sprinklings of modern storytelling in it enough that I could jump on board.
Yeah, as a millennial, you could follow.
Yeah. There was a.
Like, why are they eating Tide Pods?
There's like a really cool character introduction where a guy's being hanged or he's sentenced to be hanged for stealing a horse, and everyone's like, "Yeah, he did it," and then Chris's reveal is he goes, "No." And they were like, "What do you mean?" And then he manages to free the guy up.
Because it's like, who all in favor of him being hanged.
Yeah.
All opposed, yeah.
And
then because it's like he gets him out using his smarts first, and then his sharp shooting skills.
Yeah, and then it turns out he did steal the horse, but he's like, "Oh well, that's life." And it also has fucking Brooks was here in it. He's one of the main seven.
Oh, is it? Oh, nice.
Yeah, the guy with the family who they go to, and he's like, "Oh, I've got a family now. I can't get back into this." Brooks was here.
Nice. Brooks was here from
from Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption. Yeah. All right. So then we're the Magnificent Seven. Riding Cowboy. In 1972, directed by George McCown, and so this also doesn't have a critic score. And this one sees a new Chris, this time played by Lee Van Cleef, who we mentioned last episode, is the sort of second star, second billing in For a Few Dollars More, and is the bad from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
And also, we should say as well that in The Magnificent Seven, the main bad guy is Eli Wallach, who's the ugly in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yes, yeah.
Clint
Eastwood doesn't appear, though.
No, he would never do it.
So this, what's this one about? You referred to this as being the Logan of the Magnificent Seven.
Well, because it's a lot more dark and brutal, but it is still eventually it becomes about the same thing. It's the same guy. Now he's Lee Van Cleef, and he recruits a bunch of people to help save a village from bad guys.
Yeah.
But
and I like that in this one he's like, seven's my lucky number. Because it's like, how does it always just end up being seven people?
Yeah, seven's my lucky number. Back when I had a different colour hair, and back when I was bald and Creole. This is... I really liked how this one started, and then it's like everything I liked about it slowly circled the drain and was eventually gone by the end of the film. So like at the start, Chris now has a new job as like a prison warden essentially, and he doesn't want to let out this 18-year-old boy who's got in custody because he like robbed a family, like a starving family, and he's like, that's really bad. And they're like, no, but you can't send him to this big prison house, he's just a boy.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad, Chris. And so his wife, who he's now got, she convinces him basically to have a heart, and he lets the boy out, and then the boy like robs another bank and kidnaps Chris's wife, and it's like, oh, that's cool, you know. It's like the he should have stuck to his guns. It's like that's a cool kind of story. And then him and the dad from the Waltons, which is only an actor I know because my mum watches a lot of the Waltons. They go on a on a voyage to find Chris's wife, and I was like, cool. It's, you know, it's a revenge story. It's dark. It's nice. And then they immediately find Chris's wife and she's been murdered. And I was like, oh, shit. And then they find the people who killed it. They find the boy who did it within 20 minutes and he's already dead. And then the story just shifts to being about the Magnificent Seven story structure.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? I was so interested in the other story that was happening here.
Yeah.
And also, by the end of the movie, he just gets another girlfriend. And this is days after his wife has been murdered.
And this is days.
It's days, Richard. And I was like, it reminds me of old James Bond movies where Sean Connery just loses his girlfriend and then the next day he gets with someone else. And I was like, I can't believe this. And actually, one of the creepiest and most dated things about this film, and something that definitely strikes down a few pegs in my eyes, is that in the other ones, it's like, we don't really have enough money to pay you, but we can feed you rice and beans. And it's like, well, you know, it's kind of homely.
A cowboy loves rice and beans.
Exactly. And in this one, all the men from the village they're protecting have been destroyed. And so the equivalent of feeding them rice and beans is like, you each get 3 girlfriends each. I was like, oh no, that's so horrible. And the women don't even look enthused by it. It's more like you pick the woman you want to look after you while you're staying here. Like, look after you, quote unquote.
Yeah, rice and beans, wink.
They'll feed you, but also, I guess, feel
the implication.
Yeah, exactly.
Feel they have to.
And it's very like, ugh, this feels a little too horny for me. Feels like the screenwriters got a little too horny writing this film.
Yeah. This also, like, this one's slightly more enjoyable as well, just because Lee Van Cleef is more enjoyable to watch.
It is for a bit. By the end, it's probably my least favorite one overall, I think.
Really?
Just because it teases you with something more interesting.
Yeah, because I watched this. I was watching this at work, and I watched like 40 minutes of it, and then watched the last hour yesterday, and I definitely split it up into like a good half and a bad half.
Yeah, exactly.
And then also Gary Busey's in this film.
Where?
A young Gary Busey. He's the one with the big teeth.
Huh. Oh, that's another thing I liked about this film, is that the Seven is mostly comprised of inmates who Lee Van Cleef is letting out of prison on the, on the proviso that they do the job.
Yeah, I like that this one's kind of like a
it's morally grey.
Yeah,
it's very
like
70s compared to the
Suicide
60s
Squad.
of the, like 70s westerns, I'm sure, was when they were trying to be more morally ambiguous, whereas 60s westerns is very like, these are the goodies, these are the baddies.
Yeah. All right, and then we've got 2016, Magnificent Seven, 2K16. What do you reckon this has with critics?
This is like 60%, right?
Yeah, 64.
Yeah.
72 with audiences. And, is there anything worth pointing out about this one being different from the original?
Just that I recognised all the actors and were able to distinguish between them.
Yeah. This one was fine.
Yeah, this is fine. I can understand. It's definitely 64% on,
Yeah.
I enjoyed quite a lot of it, and I got bored. I watched it I watched a movie in between the first half an hour and the last hour.
Movie?
Huh?
What was the movie you watched?
Across the Universe.
Oh, yeah. Why?
Because my friends were like, hey, come watch this. And I was like, all right.
Did you like it?
Nah.
Have you seen it before?
Nah.
What didn't you like about it?
It's stupid movie. Unmotivated. All the songs are unmotivated. Like, say what you want about Mamma Mia, but at least the songs feel appropriate when they start singing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole point of Across the Universe is, it's put together specifically to do that, Like, it's like they got a bunch of Beatles songs and
worked out how they could string all these together. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I think it's fun for what it is.
Yeah, sure. I definitely didn't give it the time it deserved, but I also know
you were too busy thinking about Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, I also know that it's not particularly received well anyway, so I don't think I'm an outlier by not enjoying it. Anyway, Magnificent Seven. Yeah, man. I thought the bad guy was really cool in this. Thought he was kind of deliciously evil in a way that
he was cool.
You don't often get. I thought that all the actors were really great. I really liked Vincent D'Onofrio. Vincent D'Onofrio is like the salted caramel of actors for me.
Well, he only just existed a few years ago, and they acted like it's always been there.
It's exactly what I meant, Richard, because everyone acts like salted caramel has always been around, but I never remember hearing about salted caramel before 2016, and I never remember...
Well, I mean, when I say, I mean like 2009.
When I saw Jurassic World, I didn't know who Vincent D'Onofrio was.
Right.
And he's in that movie.
Is there like salted caramel...
Red Velvet as well?
Oh, yeah.
Don't act like Red Velvet was around in 1995. It wasn't.
Yeah, it doesn't say when salted caramel was invented, because it actually does feel like it was invented.
Yeah.
You know. And and the fact that people just made a new flavor. I mean, it's not like a new flavor, I guess, but...
He just made a new dinosaur.
You just went ahead and made a new flavor?
Depends what kind of flavor they cooked up in that lab. Jurassic flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought Chris Pratt was fun. And
we talked about this on our most anticipated films of the year, but there was a Western that came out. It didn't come out in New Zealand, but it's called The Kid, and it's directed by Vincent D'Onofrio. It stars Ethan Hawke and Chris Pratt. And it's like Vincent D'Onofrio, Ethan Hawke, and Chris Pratt aren't like three names I would necessarily put together, but they've they've created two westerns together, a genre that doesn't really get made these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they enjoyed their time on the Magnificent Seven, but didn't feel like it was
that's sort of what it sounds like.
Good enough of a movie, so they're like, let's just make another one.
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke in this movie's in the Magnificent Seven, his character's name is Goodnight, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
they call him Goody for short.
And Ethan Hawke's breaking down his iconic character's role video on YouTube, he talks about how much fun he had on Magnificent Seven. I think that's one of those things that there's a lot of actors these days that are around that kind of age that jump at the chance to do a Western because they're the films they grew up watching and they don't get made very much. So, because a remake of the Magnificent Seven that kind of just flew under the radar in 2016, it has a pretty decent cast for that, but it's because all these people that are like quite happy to jump on in these smaller roles. But yeah,
it's fun. Go check it out. It brushes with being something interesting, but never quite goes all way and kind of just sticks with being like
it's a reunion for the Antoine Fuqua and Denzel and Ethan Hawke, who all made Training Day together.
Oh, there you go.
Which is a very good movie, which I don't think you've seen, have you?
No.
Boy, fuck, it's good. It's so good.
Fuck, it's good, eh?
Oi,
all
fuck. Oi. Yeah. Well,
if you are wanting a perfectly fine, like, this is a difficult movie because it's just like there are just better movies than this. So if you're like, what movie should I watch tonight? I'm probably never going to say The Magnificent Seven 2016, but it is that kind of movie that you would chuck on because you're bored. It's like a not quite as good blockbuster.
Yeah.
What an indictment.
Yeah. I remember when it was announced and I was like, I just assumed Magnificent Seven was like one of those untouchable movies.
Yeah. So,
and I was like, they're remaking Magnificent Seven? I was like, fuck.
Well, it is, to be fair, it is one of the best movies of 2016.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. It's probably in my top 10 of 2016.
Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Fuck.
Damn.
What a year. What a year that was.
What was the best movie of 2016? Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them?
Swiss Army Man, I think, was 2016.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Nice, guys.
All right. Well, it's time to move on to a little segment called We Talk About Titles a Lot on this franchise.
Podcast.
Fun fact, when Seven Samurai was first brought to the States, it was called The Magnificent Seven. And then
Huh.
they later renamed it once they decided to remake to Seven Samurai, which is just a translation of what the title is in Japanese. And yeah, so to avoid confusion with the upcoming remake. But yeah, what do you think of the titles?
I mean, probably the biggest outlier is Return of the Seven. It's the only one that doesn't have Magnificent
Yeah,
in the
but
title.
I've seen it in some places called Return of the Magnificent
I
Seven.
did too, yeah.
Yeah.
But the titling scheme for the sequels are just real bizarre. It's like they don't stick with one theme. They dip their toe in every kind
I would
of
like
theme.
if it would be cool if it was the Magnificent Seven, Return of the Magnificent Seven, Guns of the Magnificent Seven, Ride of the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
Because
Or
it's just
the Magnificent Seven Return, the Magnificent Seven Gun, the Magnificent Seven Ride.
yeah. So that's the titles.
Like we're talking, we pay our dues, but there's not always something to say. It's fine.
Yeah. What other fun facts do I have here? Oh yeah, actually, an interesting thing. Couple of things to do with death. So, Robert Vaughn, who died in November 2016, was the last surviving member of the Seven. From the Magnificent Seven, and Rosenda Monteros was the last surviving cast member at all, and she died December 29th last year.
Oh wow.
So everyone who is in the Magnificent Seven is dead.
Which same with Seven Samurai, right? They're all dead as well.
Yeah, we looked it up. I think the last person in Seven Samurai, because I don't think any of the Seven Samurai made it to the 2000s. The last one died in 99. But the last cast member to died on my birthday, 2017.
Wow.
February 8th.
Thank you.
Send me presents. So
Should we get a PO box? Let us know in the comments if you listen this far. You're clearly a commenter. Let us know if you want us to set up a PO box. If
so you
want
can send us stuff.
Send us shit. Yeah.
So yeah, if you just send us DVDs and we'll just watch them. And
well, I'm not committing to that. God.
Oh fuck, we might get one DVD a year if we're very lucky. Magnificent Seven was the last film composed by James Horner before he died. But he composed Southpaw with which was directed by Fuqua, and so James Horner died like during filming of Magnificent Seven, but a month after his death, his team delivered the score to set, and it turns out he was so inspired reading the script that he composed the entire score during pre-production.
Wow.
Yeah,
and that's
so,
that's not it, is it?
No, this is the remake. Sorry.
Ah, okay. You did say Southpaw, and I was like, it must be the original Southpaw, not the one that came out.
And I
very
mentioned
recently.
Anton Fuqua, and he must have had a
yeah.
very long career.
Yeah. Directed both the original and the remake of Magnificent.
Yeah, well, he was directing at the time of the original, but didn't do it. All right, so time to continue that franchise.
No, it's not. I'm doing the wrong theme music. It's dun 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 dun. That's such a better one.
Yeah, it is. What
was I doing? I can't. I'm so bad at this. Let me know what theme song I was doing. It's probably like the Bionic Man or something like that. I feel like it's.
Okay. Are you ready to continue the franchise?
Yeah.
So there was a TV series that ran for 2 seasons from 98 to 2000, which is a weird time for that to run.
Yeah.
All right, and there's like we said, there's a lot of films that sort of fit the mold created by Seven Samurai, A Bug's Life, My Little Pony the movie, Galaxy Quest.
Oh yeah, A Bug's Life. Those all kind of subvert the formula and especially Bug's Life and Galaxy Quest. I've not seen the My Little Pony movie, but in A Bug's Life, he thinks they're warriors and they're not. And in Galaxy Quest,
I always thought that was part of it until I watched Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
I always thought it was going to be like, but a bunch of people get mistaken for samurai and then end up saving the day, because I'd seen a Cinefix video about Kikuchiyo Sword about how because he wasn't a samurai,
right?
He lied about it and then ends up becoming like heroic.
Yeah, and
so I just thought that was all of them.
Nice.
Which I think is a more interesting story.
But I prefer A Bug's Life to Seven Samurai.
Okay, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So initially, what I was thinking was, I was like, you know what my biggest problem with these movies is? 7's too many. I can't keep track of all these characters. And I was like, let's do the Magnificent 5 or the Magnificent 3. Let's like
Mr. Magnificent.
Mr. Magnificent. Let's bring it back down. But then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Go all in. The Magnificent 77. And then I started thinking more about it, and it went from a joke idea to this isn't that bad of an idea, because I started thinking about Endgame and how there's so many characters in that, and I started thinking about how Lost managed to balance, 14 characters in its first season, and then I came up with a legitimate idea that's more of like tapping into my filmmaking interests as opposed to like wanting to do a funny continue the franchise. And I was like, could you make a movie with the the basic structure of the Magnificent Seven, but there are 77 characters and all of them at least get some semblance of a story arc? Could say we make it as a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
Can you do a 77 large army and give each character at least some moment in the spotlight where you can go, this is what this character does.
2.5 minutes.
Well, maybe some people get more than that. Maybe there's a main character. Maybe there's a Denzel, and...
Yeah. Who would... now let's go through. Who would you cast as each of the 77?
Well, I don't know, but you could get, the first 7 could be all A-listers, and they're the ones you focus on more, and then you gradually go back down through the alphabet of actors and cast, keep going lower and lower. But I don't know, I just thought that was an interesting idea. Is it possible, I guess?
How long does the movie have to be to flesh out 77 characters?
Yeah, and flesh out in the sense that
just keep making the movie until every character has a completed story arc, and then see how long it is.
And I mean, Lost is a TV show, so maybe that's the way to do it. But it is like, could you say I don't know, Steve Zahn, he's a certain level of fame, and he's in this movie, and he is a certain level. He's a specific level of fame.
I know, yeah. I'm just laughing at you. What I mean? Like, he's in this movie. It's it's a movie you're creating.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
And so say you see him 45 minutes in, and he's wanting to avenge his father, and then you see him
Who's
die.
his father?
I don't know. You don't know. And then you see him die.
Is his father not one of the 77? Because there's another one.
Yeah, and then you see him die. You see Steve Zahn's character die, 20 minutes before the end in a heroic death. And it's like, there's his character arc. The minimum of what you can do for a character arc.
Yeah.
And nice. Steve Zahn could pull it off, dude.
Okay, so continue the franchise. So it's a film about a quaint little town that has had enough of these bandits that are stealing all their stuff.
Yeah, and so they recruit 7 warriors to come and protect them.
But to fight a bandit, you need to think like a bandit.
Oh shit!
So they get together a veritable Suicide Squad of people to protect their town. So going back up through the 7 stereotypes of the archetypes. So you've got the funny guy, Hades. You've got the young guy, Clayton. You've got the old guy, Frollo. You've got the smart guy. Now, I could either go Jafar or Scar here, depending on whether we want them all to be human. Then you got the big guy, Ursula, and the Lancer, Gaston, who all come together for the Maleficent 7, led by Maleficent.
Very cool, man. What a creative idea.
Thanks.
When I was watching Across the Universe with my friend Serena, she kept going oh, that's very cool. Watching them, being a supportive mum looking at their son's Minecraft map. Oh, that's very creative. How'd you do that? How'd you do that part? And then they go back to whatever they actually care about. Very creative is such an insult. If someone's ever showing you their thing, don't reply with, that's very creative.
Yeah. All right, well, that just about wraps us up in the interest of keeping this in under 1 hour. join us next time for...
Hold on. Shall I give the plug before you reveal the...
Yes.
So this is, if you don't know what we're going to reveal what our next franchise is, which was voted on by the Patreons over at patreon.com/cultpopture. For $1 a month, you too can suggest and vote on for every second franchise we cover. But before we tell you that, if this is your first episode of Cult Popture, then please check us out on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And you can email us at cultpopturemedia@gmail.com. We're on all the socials.
Hang out with us on Little Empire Podcast Pals,
Very
because
good.
we're part of a podcast network called
Yes.
Little Empire. There's lots of great podcasts on there, so go check those out and come hang out on that Facebook group. Just search for Little Empire Podcast Pals on Facebook and request to join, and then say Cult Popture is your favourite podcast when you do the little joining quiz.
Yeah. Every time you say Cult Popture is your favourite podcast, an angel gets its wings.
All right. What is our next franchise, AJ? You say half of it, and I'll say the other half.
I'll say every second letter. No, it is the Fast and
the Furious.
Oh my god, this has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
So this was voted on our patrons with some very strategic social planning. Yeah, this feels like when you hear that there's two guys doing a podcast where they watch every franchise ever. This almost feels like one of the first three that do.
Yeah. People have asked. This is a very asked one. But because
a very asked one.
Just before we next release our episode, Hobbs and Shaw's coming out.
Yeah, exactly. So that was what I meant. It's very strategic planning on our patrons' half, on their part. Sorry, and yeah, I mean, this franchise will have it all, man. It's got weird titles. It's got ample.
It's the We Talk About Titles franchise.
Yeah. That and Final Destination.
Yeah, I'm getting dangerously close to 1 hour on my record.
Me too, dude. Let's get to. I'm on 52, 53.
Oh shit!
54.
Bail.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.